What happens when Hollywood royalty walks straight into daytime television's lion's den? What if that royal happens to be Meghan Markle, and across the table sits Joy Behar, the queen of cutting commentary, her smile sharp, her tone precise, ready to provoke? What started as a simple book promotion for a new children's book turned into one of the most unforgettable, combustible interviews ever aired on The View. Before we dive into this jaw-dropping encounter, make sure you hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments, whose side would you be on when the questions start cutting deeper than anyone expected? The moment Meghan stepped onto the set, you could feel the temperature in the room shift. She walked confidently in a cream blazer, a carefully crafted smile lighting her face, radiating calm professionalism. Yet behind her eyes, there was caution, a flicker of weariness that betrayed a lifetime of navigating scrutiny. The applause from the studio audience was polite, almost hesitant, like the sound of people bracing for the storm before it hits. Everyone sensed that this was not going to be a routine interview. Joy Behar leaned forward slightly, that infamous smirk curling at the corner of her lips, the kind of smirk that promised friction. "We're joined today by Meghan Markle," she said, her voice calm but piercing, a gentle warning cloaked in courtesy. Meghan responded graciously, thanking the hosts, pivoting to her book about empathy and kindness, trying to steer the conversation toward lighter, safer territory. But Joy had other plans. "Empathy and kindness," Joy repeated, emphasizing the words, her tone both curious and loaded. "That's interesting, because some people might say you haven't shown much of that toward your own family lately." The room froze. You could feel the collective intake of breath. Even Whoopi Goldberg, usually unshakable, leaned back with a look that said, "Here we go." Meghan's polite smile stiffened slightly, her eyes narrowing just enough to signal discomfort. "Family relationships are complicated, Joy," Meghan said carefully, her voice steady but deliberate, measured to prevent any crack in her composure. "And I've always believed in keeping personal matters private." Sunny Huss jumped in like a lawyer circling a witness. Her tone was incisive. "But Meghan, when you share family matters in interviews and documentaries watched around the world, can you really call them private?" The audience gasped audibly. Producers murmured to each other. Meghan took a long, deliberate sip of her coffee, a classic tactic to buy time while she gathered her thoughts. "There's a difference," she said finally, her voice controlled, "between sharing your truth and exploiting family pain for entertainment." Joy's eyebrows rose. "Your truth?" she said, slowly, clearly savoring the words. "That's a very California phrase. But what about everyone else's truth? Your dad's, your sister's?" For a fleeting moment, Meghan's composure wavered. A subtle flicker of hurt crossed her face before she masked it with poise. "My father worked with tabloids against me," she replied, her tone sharper now. "That's not my version of events. That's documented." Joy leaned back slightly, her body language deliberate, calm, even slightly playful, but her eyes were laser-focused. "Sweetheart," she said, her tone dripping with feigned concern, "life's a little more complicated than that. Don't you think maybe, just maybe, you played a part in how things fell apart?" The audience shifted uncomfortably. You could hear chairs creak and pens tap. Whoopi remained silent, observing. Sarah Haynes wrung her hands, uncomfortable, sensing the tension rising like a pressure cooker. Sunny's pen hovered over her notebook, poised to strike with the next precise question. Meghan tried to regain control, pivoting back to her book. I came here to discuss my book, not to relive old family wounds, she said firmly, her voice steady, though there was an edge of strain under the surface. Joy didn't relent. But that's exactly the point. You can't talk about empowerment and empathy when you've publicly cut ties with your own father. How do you reconcile that? The audience murmured, some nodding, some shaking their heads. It was a delicate dance of empathy and critique, one that Joy thrived in. Then Sunny upped the stakes. And what about the claims of racism within the royal family? You mentioned someone made a racist remark about your son, but you never named them. Do you think that left innocent people under suspicion? The air grew tense. Meghan's head snapped toward Sunny. Are you seriously questioning whether I should have spoken up about racism directed at my child? She demanded, incredulous. Sunny's response was precise. I'm questioning how you did it. You chose a global platform without details, and that created chaos. Joy leaned in again, ready for the next strike. And all of this, she said, her voice almost sweet, just happened to surface when your public image needed a bit of fixing, didn't it? Meghan's jaw tightened. You think it was convenient to relive trauma on international television, to discuss my mental health struggles in front of millions? She said, her voice quivering between anger and pain. The audience reacted instantly. Some gasping, some murmuring agreement. Joy's tone didn't soften. I've seen people use mental health as a shield when they don't want accountability, she said flatly. Are we sure that's not what's happening here? Meghan's hands began to shake suddenly. Are you suggesting I fabricated my struggles with mental health? She asked, her voice trembling. Joy's gaze didn't waver. I'm suggesting you've made a career out of playing the victim whenever things get hard, with your family, with the royals, even here, she said, each word deliberate. That was the breaking point. Meghan rose, her voice rising with raw intensity. I will not sit here and be lectured about victimhood by someone who profits off humiliation. Joy rose too, mirroring her energy. Oh, so now I'm the villain? Do you want tough questions or just applause? Sunny interjected, trying to contain the storm. Meghan, you knew this was this show. We don't shy away from controversy. But Meghan was past the point of diplomacy. You mean controversy like questioning whether racism exists or suggesting I should have stayed silent? Sunny's voice was calm, almost surgical. I mean controversy like refusing to take responsibility for how your actions affect others. The staff who quit, the palace aides, are they all lying too? Finally, Whoopi's voice cut through the tension, commanding and measured. Hold on. You can't blame everything on the palace, Meghan. At some point, you have to own your part. The betrayal on Meghan's face was palpable. Own my part? She repeated, voice trembling with raw emotion. I took responsibility by walking away from a toxic system. I protected my family. What more do you want from me? Joy delivered her final blow, calm and cutting. We want honesty. We want the real Meghan, not the PR version. Maybe it's time to admit you've made mistakes too. Meghan's voice cracked and the room held its collective breath. You think I wanted any of this? To be torn apart by the press, betrayed by my own father, to question whether I even wanted to be alive? The studio fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Joy didn't flinch. I think you want sympathy, she said softly, without accountability.
Sarah finally spoke, almost a whisper. Maybe we should all take a breath. But Meghan's final words cut through the room like a whip. No, she snapped sharp and controlled. Don't try to manage me right now. I came here in good faith to talk about children's literacy, and instead I'm being ambushed by a panel that clearly had their minds made up before I even walked in. The tension was electric. One host leaned forward, eyes narrowed, voice aggressive. Ambushed? You've been on every platform telling your side of the story. This is the first time anyone has challenged your narrative with real questions. If you can't handle that, maybe interviews aren't for you. The words hung in the air like a gauntlet thrown down. Meghan's chest rose and fell rapidly. Cameras rolled. Producers whispered frantically. The audience was riveted. This wasn't just an interview. It was a battle. Every exchange was a spark. Every glance a duel. Two powerful women unyielding, refusing to back down, creating a moment that would be dissected for years to come. By the end, there was no winner. Only the raw, unfiltered collision of fame, privilege, and trauma under the unrelenting gaze of live television. This wasn't more than an interview. This was a reckoning.